Hey, good evening. We're going to talk about the district data and how we are working to help our students to become and meet the vision of the goal to be those innovative thinkers and people who are confident in their academic abilities. We're going to first talk about our STAR data. As you'll notice with STAR, STAR is our reading program. It gives us a reading grade equivalency. So these charts go through and diagram the students who are at or above grade level at the time of the benchmark. And so you can see growth, and it's broken down by K&E Whiteman, and in this case, Title I. Our first grade takes the STAR 3 times a year, October, December, and again at the end of the year. The rest of the elementary buildings take it 4 times a year within the beginning, end of first quarter, end of second quarter, end of third quarter, and end of fourth quarter. And then at the middle school, we take it beginning and middle and end. You'll notice that we had a huge start with Title I, and we had a lot of kids hitting that benchmark, and then it has slowly dropped off until it has kind of equaled out and started to hopefully grow back up. What we notice is that with our Title I students, those are usually our kids who are having reading difficulty. That's why they're in Title I. And so we are not sure if that was just kind of a fluke of a test for them, or that those disabilities are showing up a little bit more. Disability is not the right word. Those deficiencies are showing up more, so that students are being remediated throughout. Our third grade data is here, and it again shows you the different categories of students. Fifth grade, we did notice a dip with our special ed students at the end of the year. The middle school does take this after the students have tested with the MAP, and so for fifth grade they've tested then previously in communication arts, math, and science for 3 weeks before they take this assessment. On this chart, you'll see that we were looking at how many students and when students started scoring that post-high school, because we knew with Gates McGinnity and even with STAR, it's hard to show growth after they reach that benchmark. And so if you'll notice that we have really 7th and 8th grade is when that really hits in. We start having several students scoring post-high school on the STAR assessment. The next few charts do go through our study island data, and this is for grades 3 through 8. These are the benchmarks that the company produces, and they take 3 benchmarks during the year. Benchmark 1 is at the end of first quarter, benchmark 2 is at the end of the first semester, and then benchmark 3 would be about your March timeframe. Excuse me. With the study island, what we want to remember is that they are benchmarking toward the end of the year. This gives us information about how students are progressing to be proficient or advanced on the MAP test. And so we do want to see those growing as they go through. On some of them where the bar is like Title I here, the bar is a little bit lower, but it's in green. They didn't quite meet the same proficiency as the previous benchmark. And so that's why those bars are there to kind of denote. On some of them, it's really hard to see the bar for gifted at the top, but those students did maintain that 100%. The next set of data is our end of course. And we had several areas this year that we really wanted to celebrate. And so we're doing the data a little bit differently because we want to share with you those areas of success. And so this is for English 1. We have several of these assessments that are becoming mandatory, that students have to take them in order to graduate. And we talk about required courses. That's what we're really meaning, that the students have to have taken them to graduate. And so this year, for the first time, English 1 was a requirement for our 9th graders to take in order to be able to graduate. We have taken it the past couple of years to kind of help our teachers get prepared, and then also to let us know where the gaps are in our curriculum so we can work on those. The next chart that you'll see is a comparison then of the last 2 to 3 years. And I tried to just put the teachers on who've had 2 to 3 years of data in the last 2 years to compare. English 2 has been a requirement that all students have to graduate for several years, so we have taken it for several years. However, Mrs. Endel taught the bulk of these classes previously, and now Mrs. Baker does. And I mention that because on the next chart you're going to see a very high spot for Mrs. Baker, and that certainly was an area that we celebrated with the number of kids who we have scoring in that proficient and advanced range. Algebra 1 is taken at the middle school and at the high school, so you're going to see a couple of charts. The first is about the high school and the teachers who have taught that class this year. And then the second one does deal with the middle school students. This comparison shows both buildings as far as how our scores are breaking out. Biology 1 was another very bright spot in an area that we celebrated. This year our students did very well on the assessment, as you can tell. Government, there is only this chart, and the reason for that is until this year, when it was required that all of our seniors have to have it to graduate, and they took it as seniors, to make it more relevant for them. In the past, we've only had 3 or 4 students take the assessment, and that's really not enough to do a comparison. In this particular chart, the total students were all taught by Mr. Richner, and so that's how come it says total and Richner there at the same time. Well, how do we respond to this data? First of all, we celebrate the success, and we have done that. We sent emails and notes and gave the information to the teachers. The teachers responded by celebrating with their students in those areas in various ways. And so we are just celebrating our success across the board. And then we are going to continue to meet with our teachers, certainly during our PLC time next year. That's going to help us to really narrow in on some of those areas that maybe we need more growth in, and some of those areas that we need to work on. So we're going to look at our implementation of our instructional programs, how we're implementing what we're doing, how our instructional strategies are working toward those areas. We're going to look at RTI options for students who maybe aren't growing in some areas. We're going to continue to bring in professional development for our teachers. We have partnered again with American Alliance for Innovative Schools in order to get teachers the professional development that they need in order to implement effective instructional strategies and practice in the classroom. And then we have done some movement of teachers to areas that maybe they were more effective in teaching. We have our third step then. We do review our assessment. We've scheduled our timing for our assessments throughout the year. We are going to continue our practices to encourage student high performance. And we really do take this seriously, and we try to look and make sure, like I mentioned with 5th grade, were those scores because of testing fatigue. And so we really try to ensure that we are creating a schedule that works for our kids so that we're getting the best data that we can utilize in the classroom, but also what's healthy for our students. And then finally, we have evaluated our high school assessments as we've looked, and we were going to spend this year really looking at what kind of assessments do we need at the high school, and how do we use that information to best modify instruction or create programs for students. And so we do have a plan created for continued progress monitoring at the high school level, and we are going to present that in July. We are waiting on a final piece of information from the state. The state board is supposed to be looking at it actually the first week of June, so this week, and they're going to let us know about how our assessments are going to be changing for our state assessments or if they're changing. So we're waiting for that piece of information, and then we will present in July our assessment plan for the 2013-2014 school year.